So if you watched my last video, you know that I lost a lot of footage and basically just had to piece together what I could. This video is kind of going to be the same, but I do visit a couple cool places and I do a 1,500 mile iron butt run in 23 hours. So stick around. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you to all my old subscribers and my new subscribers for sticking it out and being part of this journey. Really means a lot. I appreciate it very much. So thank you guys for being here. So at this point in my journey, I'm basically getting off the Blue Ridge Parkway. There was a rock slide due to bad weather like a week before, so I had to get off the Blue Ridge Parkway anyways. And I figured I had a choice to make, either to go around the detour and finish the Blue Ridge Parkway, which would have been dark anyways, or to continue on to my destination for the next day, which was Point Pleasant, West Virginia, which if you're familiar with Point Pleasant, that's the home of the Mothman. So we're gonna go check out the Mothman Museum and we're gonna start out from there. Morning, everybody. It's a beautiful day in downtown Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Back in 1966, there was the legend of the Mothman started, and here he is. So basically it started out as a local phenomenon, then it grew to being an American folklore legend, and now it's basically a worldwide legend at this point. And I'll leave enough time here for you guys to read it. The Mothman Museum with my new friend George, and he's selling his own comic book. What you got there, George?
I got a book. It's Men in Black, Zobot, Shadow People, Skinwalkers, Azwang, Yokai, and Ords. All the different stuff. I've been somewhat interconnected, and it's interesting, and I've been fascinated with it.
Now, can you order that online or anything?
You can on Amazon.
It's on Amazon.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, if you guys are interested in that stuff, go buy his comic book, help him out. Like I said. And I'm sure it helps fund his trips to go check out more weird stuff like we're going to check out here at the Mothman Museum. So we'll see you here in a little bit. We're going to go inside and check some stuff out. Probably come home with a few souvenirs and we'll go from there. Now I'm inside the actual museum tour of the Mothman Museum, and just gonna kind of walk around here, check some stuff out, and let you see it for yourself. yeah, it's a pretty neat little place. It was cool coming up here. So if you're ever up in West Virginia, Point Pleasant area, stop in here. Check this town out. So anyway, so we're gonna get out of here and I'm gonna head on to my next stop. Now, before I continue the rest of this trip, I gotta stop and not get ahead of myself here. But what I'm gonna do is tell you what I believe is the real story of the Mothman, which I heard from a local that's lived there all his life. So stick around for another episode of Now, if you made it this far through the video, thank you very much for sticking around. I appreciate it. So anyways, this story is going to be a little bit long-winded, so I hope you stick around for the rest. So I get into Point Pleasant, it's probably about 8:30, 9 o'clock. I go to find a hotel and stuff like that. So as I get into the hotel, I ask the front desk person, I say, hey, is there any bars or anything like that locally that I can go to? So yeah, there's a biker bar about 2 or 3 blocks up the road. So it's like, cool. So I get ready, I head up to this bar. Well, it's like 10 o'clock, I pull up this place and it's closed. But before I even went on my trip, I was looking for places to kind of go hang out and just relax after a long trip. And there's this place called The Landing in Ravenswood. Well, it's, probably about 20 miles from Point Pleasant. And I really didn't plan on going back, backtracking and going to this place after riding all day, but it was pretty much the only place open till like midnight or 1 o'clock. So I said, screw it, I'm going there. And the reviews on this place are actually pretty funny. It's only got 1 review in Yelp, and it's got 3 stars. And I'm gonna show you the actual Yelp review right now. So I'm like, hell yeah, that sounds like my kind of place. I'm going. So I come rolling up there. It's probably about 10:30 at night. And of course, I got all my gear. I'm in the big gaudy gold wing there, the old geezer glide. Got my riding jacket on, my helmet. So as I'm pulling down the street, the town's pretty dark and I see the bar on the corner. So I pull in, I take a right in front of the bar. Well, I didn't realize it's a one-way street. So the GPS starts going crazy. You're going the wrong way and all that shit. Well, there's a couple people standing out the bar, outside of the bar, and they're looking at me and they're like, hey, Power Ranger, you're going the wrong way. So I'm like, oh shit. I said, I can tell already what kind of place this is gonna be. So I just kind of laughed like, yeah, thanks for the info, and I go inside and it's an old building. It's probably been a bar since that building was built. You go in there and you look and there's a, pretty good sized L-shaped bar. There's a pool table off to one side. There's a, younger couple in their 30s playing pool and, bartender lady, she's probably, I don't know how old she is, but she looked old. Let's just put it that way. And then there's some big old dudes sitting at the corner end of the L-shaped bar, and then another old guy that's sitting there. He's got to be in his 70s, and a dog that's just as old as he is. So I sit at the bar kind of adjacent to these 2 other guys, and I order my shot, and, how you doing, guys? And one guy looks at me, he's like, oh, geez, you ain't from around here. And meanwhile, this old guy sitting there drinking his bourbon, he doesn't even look up from his glass. So I get talking to this guy. I was like, oh, hey, I'm from South Florida and all that stuff. And he's, oh, yeah, where from? And I was like, told him, where I was from. He's like, oh, wow, I got a stepdaughter or a niece or something that lives in the general area. Anyway, so I tell him about my trip going from, Naples up to Tail of the Dragon through the Blue Ridge Parkway and so on and so forth. And, that I'm here. And he's like, well, what the hell are you doing here? And I was like, oh, I'm here to see the Mothman, right? And at that moment, that old dude sets his drink down and he says, for sakes, right? And kind of look over at him, laugh, and it's like, oh, you do talk, and me and the other guy kind of clown him a little bit, And I was like, oh, you know about this Mothman thing? And he's like, I know all about that damn thing, he says. And I said, well, tell me a story. He's like, oh, I ain't got time to tell people stories and argue with people about this stupid Mothman and so on and so forth. He's going, look, I said, I'm not here to give you a hard time. I said, but there's got to be some sort of story behind this Mothman thing. I mean, I don't believe in that stuff myself. I'm not a, fanatic. I just like going and visiting weird shit. Doesn't mean that I believe in any of that stuff. He says, it's 2023. And granted, I went last Labor Day, so this thing has been over a year since I've put this video together. So that's whatever, that's besides the point. But anyways, he says, it's 2023 and you're in our wonderful town. And he's like, what's going on? I'm like, well, hell if I know, man. I just got here. He's like, no, what's going on right now? And I was like, well, nothing. I said, just this bar as far as I could tell. He's like, exactly. He said, now rewind to 1966 and imagine how happening this place was, right? And I'm like, all right, I'm kind of feeling your drift. It's pretty boring now. And so, yeah, back then, it was probably really boring. There ain't a whole lot to do. He says, you find your own fun. He said, 60s was a time of peace and love. And he said, there's ways to escape town without even leaving town. And of course, he's talking about psychedelics. So I'm like, all right, I get you. He's like, yeah. He said, these two couples went up to this old TNT site. They took too much shit, freaked out. One of them freaked out, convinced the other three that there was a monster chasing them. They beat the shit out of their car, ran to the police station, and told them that a monster chased them. He said, and that's it. That's the whole damn story. He said, that's it. And I was like, well, okay, that makes a lot of sense to me. He said, but what gave the story leverage was almost a year to the date, the Silver Bridge collapse, killing 44 people. Now, the Silver Bridge was built in like the 1920s or something like that. So we're talking 1966. We're talking, a good 40-year jump in time. But in that 40 years, a lot of things changes. So you're talking about the 20s where people were still more or less riding horse and buggies and the first cars were out there, to 1966 where people are driving Impalas and Chevelles and, all kinds of big, huge cars, 50s cars, 60s cars, these big, heavy cars. And what happened was the infrastructure collapsed under the weight of all these vehicles. Of course, the news comes in, it's a big story. They come in and they interview people, and then, of course, one of these people, the hang-arounds or Klingons or whatever that clung on to that story is like, oh, well, the Mothman was there. And so once the tabloids picked up on it, then it kind of became a little bit more known locally and then throughout the United States slowly. But then it started catching on, and then like Chernobyl and things like that, supposedly Mothman's there, supposedly the Mothman was seen, and all these other things. Now, as far as it being like a creature from another dimension, I don't believe in any of that stuff. And it's like the boogeyman underneath your bed. I mean, come on now. These are just allegations. This is from an old guy that seemed disgruntled at the bar, that as soon as I walked in, he knew exactly what I was there for. That's why he didn't acknowledge me, because he knew it was like, here's another goober up here looking for the Mothman shit. But what he did say made a lot of sense. He's 70-something years old, lived there his whole life, so he would have been in his late teens, early 20s when that was all going on, so he would have been right in the heart of it. So, I'm more to believe that someone took too much of a substance and lost control of their mind and thought they believed they saw something. I mean, I've seen some stuff. I knew it wasn't there, but I've seen some things. But that story makes sense. Now, as far as like the validity of the thing, yes, it was a tragedy that happened, and somehow the Mothman got mixed into it, and it just became what it is today. I mean, it's a worldwide legend. There's movies made about it. And if you haven't seen the Mothman Prophecies, it's actually a pretty good movie. It's worth a watch or a rewatch anyways. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the story of the Mothman. But anyways, now that that's out of the way, let's continue on this trip.